Kevin Warsh's first meeting as chairman of the Fed is underway with a key interest rate decision coming tomorrow. So let's go live to CBS News Morning Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. Hey, Kelly, so what are we expecting come tomorrow?
So this is going to be really interesting, right? This is Kevin Warsh's first meeting as Fed chair. So there's going to be a lot of eyes on the language that's used in the statement, in the press conference. In terms of the actual interest rate decision, we are expecting them to just hold interest rates where they are, just as they did last month. Remember, we had a really good jobs report and followed by an inflation report that showed inflation's rising. So this sort of gives the Fed the groundwork to say, let's continue on this wait and see path. Of course, though, we know that the president wants to lower interest rates, wants to make it cheaper for Americans to borrow money, as well as cheaper to sort of service that debt that the government is dealing with. And so what's going to be really interesting is the projections that are released, because we get to see where all of the different folks, remember, it's not just Kevin Warsh deciding interest rates, it is a decision made by a body of the Board of Governors, and where they voted. Do some people even want to raise interest rates in the future? That's been something that a lot of economists have talked about if we continue to see prices rise with the impact on the energy markets. So I'm really looking for how he handles some of those questions, what the language in the statement is when they release that. We often hear them sort of say things that indicate there could be an interest rate cut coming. We call that more of a dovish Fed. I expect them to change the language to something more neutral.
Oh, okay. And Kelly, as we talk about interest rates and its impacts on Americans and their wallets, new data shows a record 6% of people dipped into their 401k for emergency funds just last year. Can you just break down how significant that is?
It's significant in the sense that when someone dips into their 401k early, you not only incur the regular income tax that you would, but you also incur a 10% penalty with the IRS. So someone making that decision needs that cash, and they are willing to accept that they're not getting the full value that they would have if they waited until that they're able to access that money when they're older, right? You always hear, set it and forget it. Don't dip into it. You want to see that accrue. That being said, 6% is up from 5% with Vanguard. This was a Vanguard specific number that came out. So yes, we don't like to see that going up. We like to see less people doing that, because that means that they feel more financially stable. They don't need to incur what's called a hardship penalty, but it was coming from 5%. So it's not like it jumped or doubled overnight.
Okay, I mean, that obviously is a good context. How does that play into the whole big picture of interest rates and raising or not raising them? Would you say the economy is getting better at this point, or are we still at that same point of uncertainty that we talked about all of last year?
Depends on that memorandum of understanding with Iran and whether a deal can be negotiated. But more broadly, I think it's getting better for people who own a home, who are able to participate in the stock market. We have seen 401ks at record balances because the stock market's doing so well. But if you're someone that is still trying to make that purchase, remember, in the last decade, the average cost to buy a home has more than doubled. And your wages haven't more than doubled in many cases, right? So that is really the crux of it. Those who own things, own assets, the economy is doing quite well. For those of us that don't, it feels like a struggle.
Yeah. Kelly O'Grady, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate the context you bring to this conversation.